This is Gemara Zevachim, Daf Sadi Ches. And we like to, as we begin the month of Teves, we have an incredible sponsorship for this month, a close friend of the Daf, an incredible schos to be learning together for such a long time. Who's sponsoring the month of Teves, and particularly today, Aleph Teves, on the yard site of Aryeh ben Ya'akov, Psiyata D'Shemaya, the incredible Kayach HaTorah, should elevate the wonderful neshama of Aryeh ben Ya'akov to higher and higher in place in Gan Eden Shel Maila. And a year that learned in Radin by the Granat, Rav Avram, the Chavetz Chaim's son-in-law, Mendel Zak, should be a Milit Yashar for the entire Mishpacha and the entire Chabura. So we pick it up in the very top of Sadi Chesam and Aleph. We just ended off that Ika Denafkele Mehacha, V'Ika Denafkele Mehacha. We're in the middle of a long and lengthier brisa. They're in the middle of dissecting piece by piece. Says the Gemara, Chatos. Chatos, again, this is a quote of a pasuk from the brisa. Ma chatos miskadeshes bebalua. Avkom miskadesh bebalua. Says the Gemara, why does the Torah say chatos again within the din of Shmuel? To compare a chatos to other karbanos that what? Just as a chatos that all the beliyos get kedusha, so too avkom miskadesh bebalua. So too by other karbanos the belia will be kadosh. The next part of the pasuk, asham. What is the Torah compared to an asham? Says the Gemara, Ma'asham in Shapir Vishalya Kadosh Bai. Just like we find that by Karban Asham, the Shapir, the Fidis, the Shalya, the amniotic sac, Kadosh Bai are not Kadosh. Avkol, so too by the rest of the Karbanos in Shapir Vishalya Kadosh Bai. Says the Gemara, let's pause on this last moment. Kosavar, Rav Eliezer holds of Ladas Kashim Aviyasan, Hein, Kachin. The only way we can say that in Shabbat V'Shalya Kadosh Bai has to be that Rav Eliezer holds that the offsprings of the Karbanos get Kedusha only when, not in the Shapir, not in the Shilya, but only at the Makayim Leida, at the moment of birth, within Efsher, Mishai Efsher. And he also holds that we learn that which is Efsher, that which is Efsher. We continue quoting the pasuk of Miluim, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Torah says Miluim, the old Karbanos are like the Miluim, the inauguration. Ma Miluim, it was a special din. Maisrei and Bisreifa, the excess had to be burned. Vein Balachayim and Maisreim, and living animals are not considered Maisar, extra. Avkomasim Vein Balachayim Maisreim. Shlamim, the pasuk continues. And with this we end, Mashlamim Mefalgin Mispalgin Avkol. Mefagin umispalgin, so to all the things there is pigul, other things, and they themselves become pigul. That is the end of the long and lengthy brisa, proving Shitas Shmuel that we started on the bottom of Sadik Zayin Amid Beis. Says the Gemara, B'masnita Tana, that was one brisa. Now we have another brisa that says Mishmei Rav Akiva Mincha. We're going to learn up different dinim from the pasuk that we just quoted. Ma mincha miskadesh bebalua, avkom miskadesh bebalua. So right there, we already see a nuance of a difference, because we started today that the first way Rav Eliezer learned was that the chatos taught us the din of miskadesh bebalua. According to the Brayse of Rabbi Akiva, it's the mincha. Vitzach lemichla mincha, vitzach lemichla chatos. Why do you need both? Diashminan, says the Gemara, you need both. Because the Ashminan mincha, if it only said mincha, I would have thought a mincha is a bread type of item, it's soft, and therefore I would think maybe there's a stronger bliya, stronger absorbed substance. Aval chatas emaloi. V'ashminan chatas, I would have thought, what? Misham de karir. A chatas has its unique din. What's the din of a chatas? It is that it's koirir, that it penetrates, because this is the mamish opposite extreme, is that when you have something melted, the heat, it penetrates deeply into the meat. Therefore we need to mention both. Continues Darshin the pasuk chatos. Machatas, and the truth is we should really just for a moment before we continue, we should really just go back and remind ourselves, it was really where this pasuk came from, was back on Sadik Zayin and Beis. Maybe we should have started with this. But let's just look back there for one moment, 2 lines to the end of the narrow lines. And then the Gemara quoted all the different parts of the pasuk, and this was in order to prove to us that what we know chatos and miskadesh b'belia, but how do we know shar kachim? And we went through the whole pasuk. Now we're in Brisa Rav Akiva doing similarly, going through the pasuk piece by piece. So next is chatos. Ma chatos inay ba element achulin ubeyoyim. Chatos is something that it's only be able to be brought during the day, and it only has to start with an animal that did not have kedusha. Ubiyadei haimanis, and the chatos is brought with the right hand. Av kolina ba element achulin ubeyoyim ubiyadei haimanis. The chatas milan. In fact, the Gemara, okay, you learn it out from the chatas. But how do we know this thing in its pure form about a chatas, that a chatas has to be brought from chulin? Says the Gemara, Rav Chisda teaches, Rav Chisda, my cross says the Torah Vikir of Aaron is barachatos ashaloi, mishaloi, has to be from his own, meaning chulin, and not v'loi mishal tzibur, not something that comes from the tzibur, v'loi mishal meiser. Biyoim, mi biyoim savatai nafka. How do we know it's to be done during the day from the Yibiyam Savasa, the day that he commanded? So the question is, so why do we have to now learn all the other commands of the Chatas? If we have the pasuk of Biyoim, shouldn't that itself be enough valima to Shar Karbanos that to be brought by day? Says Gemara, you're right. Kidei Nazva, just an extra drasha. Biyadei Hayamanis, Midrab Arachanam Nafka, Damrab Arachanam Reish Lakish, Kol Makish, Nemer Etzba, Kahuna, Ino Yella, Yamin. So Nachamol, so why do you need this drasha? Says, you're right, K'dei Nasva, we knew it already, the Brisa just mentions it again. V'ba Yisema, a second way of answering, Savlik Rav Shimon, Da'amar, Etzba, Lo Baya Kuna, Kuna Baya Etzba. The Rav Shimon has a little bit of a different take on this last Brisa, that when the Torah says Etzba, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be with a Kayin. But when the Torah says Kayin, it does mean it has to be with an Etzba. So therefore, in this case, we do indeed need the extra drasha. Asham, ma asham atzmaisa mutarin, avkol atzmaisa mutarin. We learn out from an asham that the bones of the carbon asham are mutter. That you're allowed to take the bones after you utilize the carbon, you're allowed to make them into kelim, etc. So too, all other karbanis, the atzmaisav are going to be mutter, and it's going to be a chiddush that even the bones of a carbon ayla is going to be as such. We look at Rashi, about 6 lines to the bottom. Rashi articulates, so Rashi says the vart is there can't be noisar on a bone which is not an edible entity. On my Rava, we go back to really where we started this whole story in the previous daf, which was what? Which was a din of kibos by the dam achatos that splattered on the begadim of the koyanim. So says Rava Amar Rava Pshitali, the following is pashit. Dam chatos limatav dam oila limala. If the blood of the chatos and the blood of the oila both went onto a garment, and the blood of the chatos is on the bottom, and the dam of the oila is on top of it, as Rashi articulates, first the dam chatos fell, and then the oila fell on top of it. Ta'onikibos. You have to launder that garment. That is pashit. Why? Because the chatas is touching the beged and goes into the beged because the chatas was first. But what's the shaila frek Rava 2 lines down? Sadichasim beis. Rava dam oila dam chatas lamala mahu. What about in the fakarta case? Mishum negehu v'negehu. Do we say that lamaisa that it needs to be laundered? Why? Because it's touching the beged. Over here, the chatas dam is not bola because it's on top of the oila dam. That was Rava Shaila. Hadar pashet eintun in kibos. Rava went back and said, indeed, it has to do with the blia, and there'll be no kibos over here. Nachadin of Rava Amar Rava b'shitli dam al bigdai chayitzitz. The dam and a beged is a chatzitz between the beged and the waters of the mikvah, and therefore tevila would be possible. Vim tavachu. However, if the person who owns the beged is a sheichet, then ain't a chaytzitz because he's normal to have dam on him. Ravav al bigdei chaytzitz vim oicher. But if he is a one who sells ravav, he sells grease, then ain't a chaytzitz. Is similar to dinim that we've learned, or we will learn in Mirz Hashem, that, Netilas Yadayim, you can't have anything in your hands, but Zakar Moshe Feinstein, that he has the ink on his hands, and it's not a problem of chatzitza. Why? Because like a painter, Moshe was a writer, there was always dam in his hands. So similarly, when the person is regular to have these things on him, it will not be a chatzitza. By Rava, Tam Ravav al Big Domau. What if you have both? Im Tabachu Tepulim Misham Ravav. V'Meicher Ravav Tepulim Misham Dam. So either way you look at it, should be a problem. Says the Gemara, Leitzricha Da'avid Ha V'ha. The case is that the guy does both. He's a sheikhet. He also sells Ravav. But Atarti Kapid. Do we say it's true? He does both. So does he care? But to have both of them on him, that he cares about. Oidelma Atarti Nami Kapid. Teiku. I'm going to have to wait for Mashiach. Hadron Aloch. Dam Chatas. And we dive right in. We're actually not going to do a full Aschala because the Mishnah really starts a new topic. Just to begin the parak, says the Mishnah Tvil Yaim. That's a Kayin who is a Tvil Yaim or Mechusar Kippurim, or he's lacking a Kapara. Einoi Cholkim Bekachim Lechol Erev. He's not part of the Chalukah to get the Karbanas Teeth at night. We're going to stop over here. Mr. Shem, tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the Mishnah, of course, and into the new parak.